5 conservative justices on the Supreme Court are apparently poised to overturn Roe v. Wade and erase a women's constitutional right to bodily autonomy, subverting the will of the vast majority of Americans and defying a half-century of legal precedent. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. As everyone undoubtedly knows by now, 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court appear poised to strike down Roe v. Wade and erase abortion rights in a ruling that would deprive tens of millions of women their fundamental right to make health care decisions for themselves. We know that from a truly stunning leak of a draft opinion, and while there have been leaks before, a leak of this magnitude seems virtually unprecedented in the history of the court.
It is cataclysmic, I think, for the reputation of the court and even for the internal operations of the court. This is how they do their work. They do it in secrecy. I cannot think of another time where a full draft opinion has leaked early in the process like this. You cannot overstate how big a deal this is for how the court operates. The trust is shattered, and I think it's going to take a long time for the court to recover from this.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that their trust has been shattered. How will they ever recover from this breach of their personal privacy? Maybe Samuel Alito can start wearing a shirt that says, "My judicial body, my choice." We never get this sort of inside look. We never get this sort of inside look at the private machinations of the court. It's a secretive institution of unaccountable lifetime appointees. They don't want you to know what they're up to behind the scenes, especially in a case like this. Seeing one of their draft opinions before it's published is like seeing your gym teacher in a liquor store, or like seeing a Taco Bell employee lead a horse into the kitchen. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, steady, chalupa, it's gonna be fine. And you know what? Maybe the institution deserves to be shattered a little bit. You could argue it was already shattered a long time ago by cynical Republicans who spent decades turning it into a political weapon by defiling the Constitution, stealing Supreme Court seats, and forcing their nominees onto the bench through the exercise of raw power. Remember when Lindsey Graham went on an unhinged partisan screed to get the "I like beer" guy on the court? I mean, look at his face. Does this look like the face of a guy who cares about the integrity of our institutions? He looks like he's auditioning to play the villain in a Tennessee Williams play. "Meemaw, I swear by God, I'll get my revenge on you for telling me I'll never make it out of this one-horse town." No horse town? What happened to Chalupa? He made a run for the border? And yet it won't surprise you to learn that even as they appear poised to shred the fundamental rights of tens of millions of women and reap their biggest political victory in 50 years, conservatives are still whining and casting themselves as victims because of the leak.
There has to be consequences, Harmeet. For this individual, whoever it was, the Chief Justice, it's incumbent upon him to bring every law clerk before him. Give me your phones. I'm sorry, or the FBI. Give me your phone. We want all your accounts. We got to do our own, we have to do our own look at every device that you've ever used and find out who did this.
I like that they just pan over the Supreme Court justices like they're like, "It could be you. It could be you. Was it you?" The privacy of the court has been violated, and nothing is more sacred than privacy. So give me your phone. We want all your accounts, your Uber, your Pinterest, your Seamless account. I want to know if you've been ordering suspicious woke foods like green juices or quinoa burgers. And how do you know it's a liberal? It could have just as easily been a conservative, Ginny Thomas, who leaked the opinion to freeze the majority in place and stop the Chief Justice, John Roberts, from trying to convince one of the other court's conservatives to soften their stance. I have no idea. But the fact that they're all freaking out about the leak instead of celebrating the victory is telling. It underscores yet again that even at the height of their powers, these people always have to play the victim. If they want a free car on Wheel of Fortune, they'd immediately start whining. "But I already have 2 cars in my garage. I don't have space for a brand new Stingray. This is so unfair." If that doesn't strike you as an insane reaction, here's something even more unhinged. Fox News personalities referring to a leak of an unclassified document as an insurrection.
This is an insurrection against the court, and it needs to be found who did it, and whatever legal means can be taken against them needs to be taken.
I am so glad that Ari used the term insurrection. That's exactly what it is, but let's take it one step further. This is an insurrection not by some guy from some state who got hot under the collar and went to D.C. and got overheated at a rally. This is insurrection by a person who is paid for by the taxpayers and who has a duty under his particular job and employment to keep his mouth shut, and he didn't do it. So it's an egregious form. if you will, of insurrection. And I hope that everyone will use that term, because if what happened January 6th was an insurrection, this absolutely is an insurrection.
First of all, total side note here, but what's with the beard, Mike Huckabee? You look like a hillbilly Santa Claus. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Here's a pack of cigarettes and a Dr. Seuss book with the racist stuff still in there. Second, do you think you guys might be projecting a bit with this insurrection nonsense? Leaking a document is not an insurrection. January 6th, when a mob of rioters violently stormed the Capitol, that was an insurrection. In this case, someone posted a piece of paper online. Here, I'll prove which one is worse. Do you think Mike Pence would rather be whisked out of a building by Secret Service while a mob chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," or read a leaked memo that said, "Hang Mike Pence"? Do all these pundits whining about the leak really think this is what will shatter the integrity of the court? Not the fact that Republicans stole a seat from President Obama, or the fact that several of their nominees apparently lied to the Senate about their positions on Roe, or the fact that one of them called opposition to his nomination based on credible sexual assault allegations, a smear campaign orchestrated by shadowy left-wing groups in the Clintons. I could go on, so I will. The fact they rushed through another nominee a little over a week before the election, a nominee whose ceremony turned out to be a super spreader event and who posed for a political photo op with the president after a confirmation, or the fact that another justice declined to recuse himself from a case that potentially involved text messages sent by his wife that would reveal her involvement in attempts to overthrow a presidential election and install Donald Trump as an unelected autocrat, or the fact that one of them apparently got caught flushing a toilet during an oral argument conducted via telephone.
And what the FCC has said is that when the subject matter of the call ranges to the topics, then the call is transformed.
Can you imagine how jarring that must have been for the lawyers in the middle of their arguments? I mean, it would definitely throw me if out of nowhere I heard a toilet flush off camera. Who was that?
Sorry, Seth.
Wally, did you go to the bathroom during a closer look?
Yeah, you were just on one of your rants.
All right, you know, the point is we don't know if this ruling will change at all before it's published or how, but what we do know is that this is the culmination of a decades-long effort by conservatives to turn the court into a political weapon and aim it straight at abortion rights. They've been plotting this out in the open for decades. As early as 1989, there were 4 conservative justices on the court who made it clear that they were ready to overturn Roe and essentially invited anti-choice activists to help them by proposing new restrictions on abortion.
From almost day one after Roe was decided by the Supreme Court, legislators who opposed abortion came in and tried to pass restrictions.
In 1989, a Supreme Court decision known as Webster gave the pro-life movement a boost when 4 justices indicated they were ready to consider overturning Roe v. Wade.
What Webster did is it emboldened those who wanted to push the question. And it said to them, okay, it's all right. There's 4 votes here on this court to overrule Roe. We can pass bans on abortion. Let's do that and get the question directly before the court.
That was 1989. You know how long ago that was? Just to give you an idea, here's what I looked like in 1989. This is what the conservative movement, a radical minority deeply at odds with the vast majority of voters, has been working towards for 50 years. And that's why they made their Faustian bargain with an obviously monstrous individual in Donald Trump, so they could finally cement that majority. To him, he was just the final piece, the culmination of a scheme that had been out in the open since at least the Reagan era. It's why they stood with him through all his many deprivations and indignities and numbed themselves to his many crimes and abuses so they could finally achieve this outcome they've been working toward for half a century. In fact, Trump made the bargain explicit. He repeatedly told Republicans they had to vote for him, even if they didn't like him, in order to get the judges they wanted.
If you really like Donald Trump, that's great. But if you don't, you have to vote for me anyway. You know why? Supreme Court judges. Supreme Court judges. Have no choice. Sorry. 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 You have no choice.
He sounds like the only kid on your block who has a pool. Sorry, but if you want to use the pool, you got to be friends with me. Sorry. Sorry, and I'm hearing it's going to be 88 and sunny all week long, so... Trump ripped the mask off the Republican Party because there were times when Republicans and leaders of the religious right tried to play coy, lying to us about what they were actually up to and insisting ludicrously that they weren't really going to outlaw abortion. They know it's deeply unpopular and far outside the mainstream of public opinion. An NPR poll in 2019 found that only 13% of Americans supported overturning Roe. 13%. For context, the movie Gigli has a 13% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I love that movie. It's not good, but anytime my wife and I hit a rough patch, we lock eyes and say, if they can get over that. So they knew this is a massively unpopular move, which is why even as they plotted out in the open for years to overturn Roe, they also insisted to us that we were ridiculous for thinking abortion rights were at stake. It's why Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch lied to the Senate, or why the co-chair of Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board said in 2018 the left is going to try very hard to say this is all about overturning Roe. But Trump threw all that out the window when, in a craven bid to grovel for the support of the religious right, he just came out and said he would appoint pro-life judges who would overturn Roe.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court.
Having to do with abortion, if it ever were overturned, it would go back to the states. So it would go back to the states.
Some women won't be able to get an abortion.
No, it'll go back to the states.
By state? No, some.
Yeah. Well, they'll perhaps have to go to they'll have to go to another state.
And that's okay.
Well, we'll see what happens.
He's so cavalier about a woman needing to cross state lines for access to life-saving health care. It's maddening when someone who loses his over even the smallest slights tells you the thing you're worried about is no big deal. Remember, this is a guy who, if a restaurant didn't have the right ketchup for his steak, would bitch about it at rallies for the next year and a half. They said, "We're sorry, Mr. Trump, we don't have Heinz, we only have Hunt's." And I said, "Hunt's, that's not a real ketchup." We know that about Hunt's. I hate to say it, but it's not. We love Heinz. No, we love Heinz. Trump ripped the mask off the entire corrupt enterprise and just laid out the devil's bargain he made with the GOP for all to see. He even said explicitly the list of judges would be chosen by the Conservative Federalist Society. I doubt he even read that list. He probably just picked a name off it the way your aunt orders a fun cocktail on vacation. Oh, a horny caterpillar. Don't mind if I do. Which is why it's all the more grotesque and absurd for Republicans who supported nominees like Neil Gorsuch or Brett Kavanaugh to suddenly claim now that they're shocked by what's happening.
Today, Senator Collins reacted to the news with a brief statement saying in part, quote, "If this leaked draft opinion is the final decision and this reporting is accurate, it would be completely inconsistent with what Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh said in their hearings and in our meetings in my office," unquote. Senator Murkowski today, too, also suggested that Gorsuch and Kavanaugh perhaps had not been fully honest about their positions.
If it goes in the direction that this leaked copy has indicated, I will just tell you that it rocks my confidence in the court right now.
I'm sorry, this rocks your confidence in the court? And when you found out the tooth fairy wasn't real, did that rock your confidence in dentistry? Wait a second, then where the hell have all my teeth been going? I, for one, don't believe they're this gullible. I think they knew it would come to this, and now they want to feign surprise, because for all their talk about snowflakes, Republicans take the cake every time. You were mean to my friend who was applying for a lifetime appointment. You leaked a document that rolled back women's rights half a century. How are we supposed to know a thing that was going to happen that everyone said was going to happen? Why does it smell like guacamole in here? Republicans have been playing the long game and plotting this for decades. The only way to combat them is to take the fight head on, to enshrine a woman's right to choose in federal law, stand up for the majority of Americans who oppose this extremist ruling, and make it an issue Republicans can't dodge. We can't just sit around and hope Alito will take his draft opinion and do this to it.
The subject matter of the call ranges to the topics.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love You Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV/AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.